Thank you guys for joining me for another episode. For those of you who have not watched any of my previous content, check it out. Thank you all for helping me hit the 3,000 subscriber mark. I really appreciate it. Today we're going to talk about, should the NBA restart July 30th or should the players protest? This has been a very contradicting statement and a very contradicting topic right now from those of you who have been watching ESPN or have been seeing Bleacher Report with some of the things that some of the players have been talking about. And today we're going to talk a little bit about this. So to start, multitude of players have been speaking out, like the ones that you really watch or the ones that you really follow or look up to, like Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Dwight Howard, Kyle Kuzma. That's just some of the main guys, but there are plenty more. JaVale McGee, list goes on and on. Even our favorite,
here comes LBJ!
LeBron James, right? So Kyrie talked about not showing up to the bubble. So for those of you who don't know what the bubble is what they're calling the area that all the players are going to be at in Orlando for the playoffs that are supposed to start July 30th, which is next month, for those of you that will watch this video and understand that we're in June. So some of the stuff that's included in the bubble, for those of you who care at least, they'll have DJs, they'll have barbers, they'll have game lounges, they'll have movie screening rooms. They're going to have people that come out and speak. They're going to have their own version of, like, I would call a party, which is, you know, you would say it's kind of sweet, but on the other end of the side, those guys are going to get temperature tests almost 2 or 3 times a day. They're going to have a coronavirus tracker, which apparently it tracks up to 90%, and it shows if there's a virus that's going to be, if they contracted the virus about 3 days prior to them being at the event. So this is pretty cool. Now, if any player does have the coronavirus, they have to quarantine for 14 days, which is pretty standard amongst what we've seen from CDC protocol. Now, I'm going to talk about, why I think the guys can protest, but not sitting out. So Kyrie suggested that he's willing to give up pretty much everything in order to, help civil unrest and move the Black Lives Matter movement forward, which I admire, but at the same time, I do feel like it's just a tad bit selfish. If you look at the whole NBA as a whole, if we just look at Kyrie's financial portfolio, Kyrie's made over $200 million outside of the game of basketball. That means without him picking up this basketball, he's made over $200 million in endorsements. Now, the bottom half of the NBA typically doesn't have that opportunity. When you're breaking down just the NBA starting back, it's not just the players, right? You're thinking about the person in concessions. You're thinking about the person working the front door. You're thinking about the janitor. You're thinking about the media staff. You're thinking about all the people who have a direct impact to those players being able to get on the floor and play the game, that if they don't play, there's no salary, right? Those guys don't get paid. Their families don't get to eat. Unemployment's supposed to be running out June 31st. I mean, what are they going to do? So I think, I love the overall picture of what Kyrie's trying to depict, but I just believe that, there's another way that we can do it. And, here's my idea. Here's what I think that the guys should do. So to start, what I believe they should do is the NBA, all the NBA players as a whole need to say, okay, we're going to take 10% of our game checks. That means bottom tier guys, top 2 guys, they get 10% of their paychecks, put it all together after every game, and physically give that to some type of social reform within the African American community. And I don't mean just giving a donation to the Red Cross or just donating to Black Lives Matter movement. I mean physically getting in the streets and physically helping these people, going to lawyers and helping people who aren't represented and paying for lawyers, using those fees to pay for lawyers. Or what they could do is they can use some of those fees and help people with housing, pay off rent, pay off people's housing. There's so many things that we could do with that money that could help really push the Black Lives Matter movement and positive reform, right? We could get leaders like LeBron James, who's, stood up for the NBA, who's the face of the NBA right now, and he can have these conversations with people in high government positions about what they could do to help political reform within the African American community. As well as, I believe the players should hold every organization accountable. There's only been a handful of NBA teams that have came out and said something or came out and challenged the status quo regarding to the Black Lives Matter movement. Some of the teams that I'll have to mention, of course, is the Spurs. Greg Popovich is an absolute G. Honestly, he needs to run for president. Amazing guy. Steve Kerr, another model figure, standing up for everything that's right. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Some of the players that have stood up for what's going right. JJ Redick, honorable guy, amazing. Thank you. Kyle Kuzma, LeBron James. I mean, I can go on and on about all the players who have had some type of opinion on it. Ja Morant, even the younger guys. Ja Morant, shout out to you. If somehow this video gets to you, shout out to you, man, for going ahead and, downtown Murray, writing to the governor, letting him know that, he needs to take down that Confederate flag, because that's not right. Shout out to the SEC for saying that no SEC games this year will be played in Mississippi unless they change their Confederate flag, because that's the only state left in the U.S. that has some form of the Confederate flag on the actual state flag. Shout out to you for that. I'm hoping we can all get together and really do this. People really rival around sports, and I believe the NBA platform is so big, and it's bigger than just the players, that if protesting is the way that they want to go, it's just going to hurt everything. It's going to stop not only financial movement, but it's going to not give the players the ability to use that platform to speak out about things that are just civilly unjust. There's things that they could do to put things in place where we could have speeches before and after games of some of the stuff that they're currently doing with that 10% of pay that I talked about. There's just so many different things that the NBA platform has from a media perspective that we need, that everyone needs in order to be able to see, one, educate ourselves on what's going on right now, but as well as really getting a solution in place and getting it pushed out to the masses. Because we're talking about not just the US, we're talking about London, if you guys are paying attention to what's going on in the news in the UK. We're talking about Amsterdam. We're talking about, a plethora of countries. Australia. List goes on and on of countries that are rioting for civil unrest. So thank you guys for tuning into this and listening to my opinion on why I think, the NBA should restart July 30th and why I feel like all the guys could get together and really put together this plan of taking 10% of their pay every single game and physically donating it in a sense of physical donation in the streets, helping with reform and civil unjust. Please make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and thank you guys for tuning in. Catch you for the next one.